Good morning. It was a year ago on April 12th, Easter Sunday 2020, that I retired from parish ministry. That being said, this Easter was the first time in over 20 years that I have not led worship on that glorious day and preached an Easter sermon. It got me thinking about what I would have said had I preached on Easter this year. After all, what an exciting time to craft a sermon about Jesus emerging from the darkness of the tomb into the light of a new day, when we are seeing, because of the vaccine, a light at the end of the COVID tunnel after the darkness of these past 12 months. The story of the resurrection is rife once again with symbolism this year. So many directions to take an Easter sermon. For me, I would have begun by talking about my granddaughter Rory's first Easter egg hunt. Just shy of a year old, she really got into opening the colorful 5-inch plastic eggs hidden in plain sight for her, each with a small gift inside. She thrilled at finding blueberries, which she immediately ate, sponges and finger puppets for the bath, a plush robin that sang a robin song, and a soft and squishy hedgehog. I laughed at her unfiltered surprise and thought, what a metaphor for Easter and the empty tomb. After all, Easter is all about surprises, especially for the pastor. Though the congregation may wonder how many ways their pastor can tell the story of the resurrection, the pastor wonders how she can shed new light on this tale we tell year after year. As often as not, we pastors are as surprised as anyone about where the Spirit leads us. This year, I would have felt the Spirit nudging me to focus less on the empty tomb, though that is certainly where this story of resurrection, transformation, and new life begins. Instead, I would ponder how the risen Christ came to be known first to Mary in the garden, and then to the disciples in the days and weeks following that first Easter morning. I would remind the congregation that Jesus didn't simply pick up where he left off, healing the sick, feeding the hungry, welcoming the stranger, and setting the oppressed free from their prisons. Things were different after the resurrection. In his active ministry, before his death, Jesus himself had done the healing and feeding, the welcoming and freeing. Jesus was the miracle worker of love. He was the main attraction. His disciples had been bystanders, onlookers, assistants, the support people. Remember, his disciples were the ones who picked up the 12 baskets of leftover fish and bread after Jesus fed those 5,000 people, not including women and children, on a hillside. The disciples literally took out the trash. They were also the ones who kept the crowds in check when they got too large and pressed in on Jesus too much. The disciples were the original bouncers or security guards. However, after Easter, after the resurrection, a new normal emerged, and the disciples chose to embrace it. Things were different in a fundamental way. They, not Jesus, were the ones now doing those miracles of love. The tables had turned. Jesus was no longer the main attraction. He was the support person, residing always in their hearts. When Jesus was alive, his disciples had witnessed what he did. They had seen firsthand what love could accomplish. Now it was up to them to do the same. Now they were the main attraction. Such was the new normal they chose to embrace. And so I think it must be for us as we make our way out of COVID. We too will emerge into a new normal. Life will not be the same. And we, particularly as followers of Jesus and as believers in the truth of the resurrection, we have it within us now in a way we didn't seem to have before. We have within us now the capability to embrace a new way of living. After all, we, like Jesus' disciples, have seen what love can do these past 12 months. In the depths of COVID, we realize more than ever that human connections were important and that they can be strengthened by loving gestures. And so, in the time of COVID, we took care of one another. Not all the time, but when we did, it made a difference. We put the common good before our own individual needs and desires. We wore masks. We shopped for elderly friends. We telephoned. We emailed. We wrote notes. We Zoomed. Oh, how we Zoomed. And when we took the time to think about it, we came to understand that loving, as mirrored so often by Jesus, is the responsibility of every one of us. No one is going to love for us. Let me say it again. Loving is the responsibility of every one of us. No one is going to love for us. And that, my dear friends, is the foundation of our new normal. For we who are Christians, Jesus is no longer the only one who can wield the powers of love. We can and must as well. We cannot be onlookers and bystanders any longer. That would be the gist of my Easter sermon, and I would end it by declaring that life did not go back to the way it was 2,000 plus years ago after the resurrection. And likewise, life will not go back to what it was for us after COVID is said and done. As for the disciples, there will be a new normal for us too. We can choose to embrace it as they did. I pray that we do, because it is a new normal founded on love that affirms the common good, which, in the end, has always been not our duty, but our destiny.